Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo-O. It is February 3rd in 2023, if you can believe it. Yeah, 2023. Hopefully by now we're writing our checks right and not writing 2022 on them. But welcome to the Morning Devo. Kind of cool outside. I got word that New England is just freezing. It's just really, really cold. So our daughter lives out there now, and man, getting the updates over there. Sounds cold. I heard the word negative something. So gosh, that is very cold indeed. So okay, welcome. And we are going to be in 1 Kings chapter 2 today, and we are kind of still continuing actually the narrative of King David, which is kind of neat. We did that with 1st and 2nd Samuel, and now we kind of continue on in the book of 1 Kings. Kind of towards the end of his life, we saw that Solomon finally was inaugurated as the new king of Israel, anointed, if you will, as the new king. Very special ceremony was done with Nathan the prophet and all that, so, kind of a big to do for sure in the nation of Israel. This has been years in the making. I mean, it really has. I mean, have you ever just anticipated something in your life and waiting for it to happen, and finally maybe it does? And for some people, it's like buying a home. You're anticipating buying a home, or for sometimes it's just simply having a child, right? Which isn't simple at all, but in the sense that a lot of us do have kids, offspring, and but that anticipation of when that baby's going to be born, man, it can be super special. Well, the nation of Israel really has wanted a king, and the big narrative picture is that God said, hey, I'll be your king, and they said, no, we want a human king like the other nations. And really a sad moment in the early stages of 1 Samuel, where God said, hey, they have not rejected talking to Samuel back then, the you being Samuel, but God says to Samuel, they've rejected me. So they got the human king, and that was Saul, and we saw that Saul's reign was not well done at all, and then we saw King David, and we've already seen some pretty squirrely leadership in Israel, that's for sure. I mean, it hasn't been the easygoing kind of leadership. I mean, it's been really up and down. And wouldn't it be great if leadership, it was always just like steady Eddie, everybody was rock on, everybody was solid, everybody, just knew everything, they were so consistent, invested, everything like that, all the time, that'd be great, but that's not how it is, that's not how it is. Everybody's got chinks in their armor, that's for sure. So now Solomon, let's see how Solomon does, right? And that's the cool thing about where we're going in the Bible. We're going from David, okay? So we're going to see if David's son, Solomon, maybe that's the anointed one that's been promised throughout, the Bible. The promised Messiah. We're looking for the promised Messiah. We're waiting. We know it's going to be from the family of David now. And so we've been we're kind of anticipating. Maybe it is Solomon. Who knows? So it says, now Solomon's reigning right now. It says, as the time of King David's death approached, he gave this charge to his son Solomon. Okay, so he's going to give some last words to Solomon. And man, this is going to be really interesting. It says, I am going where everyone on the earth must someday go. Whoa, isn't that a trip, huh? Hey, this morning, I gotta just get up, take a short account with the Lord right off the bat, and just say, you know what, I'm gonna die one day, like physically. It's gonna happen. The body's gonna just no longer want to get up. Or if it does get up, it's not gonna be doing well. And it says, true, I am going where everyone on the earth must go someday. Yeah, what happens if I avoid that? I just continually avoid and avoid and avoid. Yeah, it's not good, right? I like the honesty there with David. Hey, I'm going to, there's some good Psalms about this kind of idea, right? It's just numbering our days. Being very good to number our days, knowing that, hey, one of the Psalms, I think it's Song of Moses, or one, that's that, hey, what is a person's life, 70 years, 70 years. We gotta know we're, for me, I'm getting close, So I am going to where everyone on the earth must go someday. Take courage. Oh man, be that courageous person and be a man. Oh, he tells Solomon, be courageous and be a man. Courage. Wow, the ability to face your fear properly, right? To take steps forward when you fear in a healthy way. Courage, gosh, that's something that we need. Solomon, obviously, maybe like Timothy in the New Testament, struggled with this. struggled with that. Maybe he was a little more timid, right? David really seemed to dig Absalom a lot, his son Absalom, but Absalom died, and it broke David. Maybe Solomon just wasn't quite like Absalom. Absalom seemed to be a military guy, but maybe Solomon wasn't. And he says, be strong, be courageous. Whew. Getting in a place of leadership too takes a lot of courage, because sometimes it's, you just kind of want to be the person who's just not in the limelight. You want the person, you don't want to be judged. You don't want to be criticized. You don't want to be, looked at and everybody criticizing your work, criticizing your job, always seeing what you don't do, not seeing so much what you do at times, right? And thing is that's kind of the position, that's the place. And it can be a challenge, but he says, be strong, or he says, be courageous, right? Take courage and be a man. And I wonder, it'd be neat if King David elaborated on that man part, right? Be a man, But maybe it just was that idea of the way David saw manhood, and what was needed, as a military man. And maybe he just didn't see that in Solomon per se, comparatively to Absalom. God, or it says, observe the requirements of the Lord, your God, and follow all of his ways. Hey, stick to the word. That's what he says. And all the laws of Moses, so that you will be successful in all you do and wherever you go. Hey, you want to be success? Just stick to it, man. Stick to the word, and you'll be successful. Hey, good morning, Laura. Hope you're doing good this morning. Nice to have you in the chat. But I love that too. In leadership, it's never a bad thing to just say, hey, you know what? Just stick to the text. Stick to what we need to be doing. Stick to what it says. That's good leadership. If you do this, the Lord will keep his promise he made to me. He told me, if your descendants live as they should and follow me faithfully with all their heart and soul, one of them will always sit on the throne of Israel. Whoa, David repeats that wonderful promise of the continual reign, right, of his descendants on the throne of Israel. So we're waiting for it. And there is someone else, or there's someone else, it says, let me finish the previous verse. He told me, if your descendants live as they should and follow me faithfully with all their heart and soul, one of them will always sit on the throne of Israel. Okay, I read that. And there is something else you should know about what Joab, son of Zeruiah, did to me when he murdered my 2 army commanders, Abner, son of Ner, and Amasa, son of Jether. He pretended that it was an act of war, but it was done in a time of peace, staining his belt and sandals with innocent blood. Do with him what you think best, but don't let him grow old and go to his grave in peace. Whoa. Joab has been with David for a long time. Joab has wrecked shop on massive amounts of people. He is really a gnarly warrior. And he has definitely shown, but he's shown himself that way, but he is definitely conniving. This guy is stealth, man. You think you're on his good side? You think you're hanging out with him? He's the dude who literally stabs you in the back. I mean, this guy is hardcore. And these 2 people, Abner and Amasa, man, they got it from Joab, when it seemed like it was good. Everything was fine. And there was peaceful moments. And Joab just did not listen to King David at all. He just went on his own. He went rogue. And man, he definitely usurped the king's authority and did what he wanted to do. And he destroyed people. families, I mean, lives, I mean, really, really wrecked. This is the kind of leader that Solomon did not want to have around, right? I mean, how is Solomon going to be able to tame a guy like Joab when David couldn't, right? When David couldn't control a guy like Joab, no matter what King David said to Joab, it just wasn't going to happen. There was no way Solomon and his counselors were going to be able to, settle this guy down. And so he says, hey, you know what? You're going to have to take this guy down. Okay? So Joab's going to have to be taken out. He's going to have to be taken prisoner, and you're going to have to deal with him. Or, you know what I mean? Like, you're going to have to, it's capital punishment, man. What's going on with this guy? He is, didn't obey the orders of the king. Be kind to the sons of Brazali of Gilead. Make them permanent guests at your table, for they took care of me when I fled from your brother Absalom. Remember that guy Brazali came out with all the food, I think it was, and helped King David out, in 2 Samuel? Well, this guy gets kind of honored by David in these last words. And it says, and remember Shimei, son of Gera? Oh, remember this guy? It says, the man from Baharim in Benjamin, he cursed me with a terrible curse as I was fleeing to Mahanaim. When he came down to meet me at the Jordan River, I swore by the Lord that I would not kill him. But that oath does not make him innocent. You are a wise man, and you will know how to arrange a bloody death for him. So David says, hey, man, I can't kill him. But you know what? This dude, he deserves it. He deserves it all the way. So David's given, in a sense, his it's like his military will, to Solomon. It says this person, you got to be careful with this person. They need to be dealt with. This person you can honor, that kind of thing. Then David died and was buried with his ancestors in the city of David. David had reigned over Israel for 40 years, 7 of them in Hebron and 33 in Jerusalem. Solomon became king and sat on the throne of David, his father, and his kingdom was firmly established. So David was around 70 or so years old when he passed away, and he reigned for 40 of those years, 33 of them in Jerusalem. So that's pretty cool, right? And, we kind of, with that, we get a little closing to, King David, and it's kind of a sad story for us, too, because we've really enjoyed a lot of the stories with King David. And, again, if you're not familiar with the Bible, just read the Psalms. And a lot of those Psalms in your Bible, or songs, are from King David. And you get really wonderful insights into his heart and his mind, because from the narratives, we just know David was very emotionally driven. And he was up, and he had extreme highs, and then he had extreme lows as well. And so, we might today think of King David maybe more, sometimes we would say, on the spectrum. Have you ever heard that term before? Kind of on the spectrum of autistic, and I would imagine that King David, if we met him, we would think that he's a very high guy and a very low guy, and very difficult for people. People struggled with King David. In his family situation was he struggled with relationships. He was not good in a relational sense in many ways. There's just one guy that I read throughout 1 and 2 Samuel that King David really seemed to jive with, right? And who was that? Who was that? Who was that? Well, it was Jonathan, right? That's the person that David really seemed to, just go, yeah, that's it. So, we have to remember that these people are real people, and they really have real struggles with them. And we can't look at these people of the Bible and think of him as some stained glass person. I used to think that way. Before I read the Bible, of course, I'd drive by a stained glass, window, in a church or something, and I would automatically think like the Bible has people in it that were hard to understand. But, that wasn't the case. It's just what I thought in my mind. But it was a wrong thought. It wasn't accurate. It wasn't in truth. There was a falsehood there in my mind. David was a real person with real issues, and we probably would give him some real diagnosis today, for sure. So anyway, he passes away, and in the Devo, I just think like, hey, as we get older, we have to prepare people, and that's what David's doing. As he's older, he's preparing people, the next generation. What am I doing to prepare my kids, that are old now, older, right? What am I doing to prepare them? Do I talk to them? Am I preparing them to take over, or do I avoid that conversation? Some people, and I've been around a lot of families like this, where they never have talked about like what happens when they pass away, and it just never is brought up. People don't want to face that, but we can, and we can with courage, right? Knowing that our life is already hidden with Jesus Christ. Yeah, we are already in heaven, seated in heavenly places with Jesus, who is at the right hand of the Father. Colossians 3 says, Ephesians 1 talks about. Yeah, we're already there. Yeah, our life is already with Christ, right? This flesh will have to go at some point. We know that, and that's okay. We just need to have courage, for sure. So one day Adonijah, whose mother was Haggith, came to see Bathsheba. Solomon's mother, have you come with peaceful intentions? She asked him. Yeah, she's wondering because, Adonijah tried to take the throne, right? So she's wondering, like, Bathsheba's like, uh-oh, are we going to have a mom brawl or what? Yes, he said, I come in peace. In fact, I have a favor to ask you. What is it? She asked. He replied, or actually Adonijah came. Sorry, Adonijah came. It just lets us know it was Haggith's son. And that's why Bathsheba says, hey, have you come in peace? It sounded like, for when I first read it, that it was two moms coming together, but nope, it was Adonijah coming to Bathsheba. Yes, he said, I've come in peace. In fact, I have a favor to ask of you. What is it? She asked. He replied, as you know, the kingdom was rightfully mine. All Israel wanted me to be the king. Then the tables were turned, and the kingdom went to my brother instead. For that is the way the Lord wanted it. So now I have just one favor to ask you. Please don't turn me down. Interesting note, just that you get the idea that there's God's sovereignty involved, right? Meaning God wanted it. But then there was a lot of action on Bathsheba and Nathan's part to make sure Solomon was the king. So what is it? She asked. He replied, speak to King Solomon on my behalf, for I know he will do anything you request. Ask him to let me marry Abishag, the girl from Shunem. All right, Bathsheba replied, I will speak to the king for you. Interesting request, huh? Now, remember who this person was. Remember in David's older life, they brought in a woman who many believed to become his concubine, someone to help David in his elderly years, kind of nurse him, help him. And this lady was not intimate with King David. And so Adonijah says, hey, I want her as a wife. So Bathsheba says, all right, and Bathsheba goes to Solomon to speak on Adonijah's behalf. The king rose from his throne to meet her and bowed down before her. Wow, what respect for a mom, huh? Do I respect my mom that way? To bow down before her. That is an interesting question, right? Honoring mom and dad, even in your elderly, or you're not a kid anymore, but you still honor your parents. I love that. When he sat down on his throne again, the king ordered that the throne be brought for his mother, and she sat at his right hand. Wow, Bathsheba definitely has a high position. I have one small request to make of you, she said. I hope you won't turn me down. What is it, my mother? He asked. You know I won't refuse you. Then let your brother Adonijah marry Ahishag, the girl from Shunem. She replied, how? And then he says, how can you possibly ask me to give Abishag to Adonijah? King Solomon demanded. You might as well ask me to give him the kingdom. You know that he is my older brother, and that he has Abiathar the priest and Joab, son of Zeruiah, on his side. Then King Solomon made a vow before the Lord. May God strike me and even kill me if Adonijah has not sealed his fate with this request. The Lord has confirmed me and placed me on the throne of my father, David. He has established my dynasty as he promised. So as surely as the Lord lives, Adonijah will die this very day. So King Solomon ordered Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, to execute him, and Adonijah was put to death. Then the king said to Abiathar the priest, go back to your home in Anathoth. You deserve to die, but I will not kill you now, because you carried the ark of the sovereign Lord for David, my father, and you shared all his hardships. So Solomon disposed Abiathar from his position as the priest of the Lord, thereby fulfilling the prophecy the Lord had given at Shiloh concerning the descendants of Eli. Okay, so a lot of kind of backdrop going on, but the first thing that Solomon does is, even though Solomon says, hey, Mom, I'm going to probably do what you say, Solomon has wisdom. He spots out something really good. You know, don't you just love people that are super keen? They just have like an insight, man, where they just know. They can, and they're looking at you, and they know, that kind of thing. And I just find people like that fascinating, where they just have a lot of wisdom, and they're wise people. Solomon hears his mom, and he says, my brother is out for the throne still. And why does he say that? Because for a son to have a king's wives or concubines, any of them, it really brought about this idea that this is really the next king. He is now taking over the previous king's property, including the concubines. Absalom did this when he was taking over the throne during his insurrection, right? Of his father's throne, right? He took his 10 concubines that were living in Jerusalem at the time, and he literally had intimacy with them publicly to show everybody that I am taking over as king. It doesn't mean they had intimacy publicly, but they went up on, there was like maybe it could have been veiled up there, I don't have to get into it all, but the whole point is that people publicly knew that he was taking over the home where the concubines were, for sure. And, we know that. But that's the idea. And Solomon says, hey, you know what? This is what Adonijah's doing. He can't just, let's face it, there's a lot of women in Israel. Adonijah, why are you going to take the concubine of your dad? So Solomon, sniffs out the situation and puts his brother to death. Wow. And so what happens then next is that he sends the priest, who is, who's been kind of on his side, with Adonijah, and says, you got to go, and banishes him from the area. And then Solomon, and in doing so, he no longer, that family no longer has a place as being a part of the priesthood, which was an actual prophecy back in the book of 1 Samuel. And so very interesting, right? So something gets fulfilled. Solomon is starting his reign well. He's dealing with things that need to be dealt with. And those are tough decisions to make. And we all know what that's like, to have to make tough decisions, but they're ones that are needed, right? It can be difficult for sure. Joab had not joined Absalom's earlier rebellion, but had joined Adonijah's rebellion. So when Joab heard about Adonijah's death, he ran to the sacred tent of the Lord and grabbed onto the horns of the altar. When this was reported to King Solomon, he went to Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, to execute him. I said Benaiah before. It's always pronouncing these names that are interesting. He went to the sacred tent of the Lord and said to Joab, "The king orders you to come out." But Joab answered, "No, I will die here." So Benaiah returned to the king and told him what Joab had said. Do as he said," the king replied. "Kill him there beside the altar and bury him. This will remove the guilt of Joab's senseless murders from me and from my father's family. The Lord will repay him for the murders of the two men who were more righteous and better than he. For my father knew nothing about the deaths of Abner, son of Ner, commander of the army of Israel, and of Amasa, son of Jether, commander of the army of Judah." So sad. David, didn't know about those things. Now we know David just wasn't very in tune a lot of times, and he wasn't in touch. He wasn't, and David again was an interesting cat. But no matter what, Joab's, sin is upon Joab, right? He did it. He did these things manipulatively. But David finally finally caught up, if you will, with it all. And Solomon's, doing the execution part. "May their blood be on Joab and his descendants forever, and may the Lord grant peace to David, his descendants, his dynasty, and his throne." So trying to rectify all the issues, right? All the problems in David's reign. Again, David had a really rough reign as king. Not easy, wasn't that good, right? David's beauty was seen in his relationship with God, his intimacy with God, his love for God. But it didn't equate to like a very stable guy, But David knew that. David knew he was rough, and he sings about it over and over. So Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, returned to the sacred tent and killed Joab, and he was buried at his home in the wilderness. Then the king appointed Benaiah to command the army in place of Joab. So Joab finally dies. I mean, that's like a kind of a big moment in the narrative, right? Joab's been vicious, man. He's been a terror. This guy's hardcore. You don't want to come across this guy. You just don't know what he's going to do. Finally, he gets dealt with. Maybe we have to trust God this morning with judgment on people. And, everybody, God's going to judge them in the appointed time. And we can trust that. We can trust God's judgment in people's lives. So the king then sent for Shimei and told him, "Build a house here in Jerusalem and live there. Don't step outside the city or go anywhere else. And on the day you as much cross the Kindred Valley, you will surely die, and your blood will be on your own head." Shimei replied, "Your sentence is fair. I will do whatever the Lord my king commands." So Shimei lived in Jerusalem for a long time. But 3 years later, two of Shimei's slaves ran away to King Achish, son of Maacah of Gath. 3 years later, we went forward in time. And it says, when Shimei learned where they were, he saddled his donkey and went to Gath and searched for them. When he found them, he brought them back to Jerusalem. Solomon heard that Shimei had left Jerusalem, had gone to Gath and returned. So the king sent for Shimei and demanded, didn't I make you swear to the Lord and warn you not to go anywhere else or you would surely die? And you replied, the sentence is fair. I will do as you say. Then why haven't you kept your oath to the Lord and obeyed my command? Wow, interesting. Obeying the Lord, obeying people. That's something maybe I need to work on. Obeying the Lord and obeying people. Maybe when I'm not so much obeying people, maybe, not obeying the Lord either. It's a thought. It's something to think about, right? It's not a clear boom, boom, but it could be something where my heart is, not doing so well when it comes to my relationship with people. And that really is showing that really maybe my relationship with God needs some help too. And certainly King David knew that, and that's why he went to God so much, right? Wrote all of his songs because he knew his relationship with people wasn't that great. And so the king also said to Shimei, you certainly remember all the wicked things you did to my father, David. May the Lord now bring that evil on your own head. May I, King Solomon, receive the Lord's blessing, and may one of David's descendants always sit on this throne in the presence of the Lord. So Solomon kind of sticks it to Shimei and says, hey, you wanted your king to reign, Saul, your tribe to reign, Benjamin? Well, guess what? There's a promise that's made to our descendants, my descendants, Solomon, and that is from the tribe of Judah. We're going to have someone on this throne for a long time. And Shimei probably didn't like that too much. And then at the king's command, Benaiah, son of Jehoiada, took Shimei outside and killed him. So the kingdom was now firmly in Solomon's grip. So that's the whole point of the chapter, right? Kind of the move of it. It's all Solomon is kind of taken over and doing what his dad told him to do and honoring his dad, but also, David having a lot of wisdom in his, on his, in the sense his deathbed, and understanding that, Solomon's not going to be able to rule peacefully with these people. Very difficult, for sure situation, but Solomon does obey and take care of it. And, we definitely want to be people that not only have faith, but our faith has works, right? Faith without works is dead, man. We want to have faith and we want work to accompany it, right? Meaning action to accompany it. We don't just want to be people of words. We want to be people of action as well. So cool devotion, good things to think about this morning. And, thanks a lot for joining me. Paula's in the house, Casey, Laura. So super stoked. And thanks for sharing these too and getting the word out that people can get in the word a little bit in the morning. So you guys have a great day. Good weekend too. It's Friday. So it's going to be a little warmer today. So enjoy it. Take care. Bye-bye.